Serial killers, arsonists, bad thrift shop donators, I got a stack of stuff for you today. This is Murder Week for November 30th, 2018. Old business. Bruce McArthur, who is the Gay Village killer from Toronto, has a trial date, and his trial is set for January in 2020. According to Global News, Bruce McArthur, a self-employed landscaper who faces 8 counts of first-degree murder, made a brief appearance at Ontario Superior Court in Toronto on Friday for a pre-trial hearing where Justice John McMahon initially suggested a trial date of September 2019. It's going to last 3 to 4 months. Now, what's interesting about this case, this is an article from The Conversation. The Gay Village killings are a issue for the LGBT community in Toronto. According to The Conversation, some community activists believe homophobia and racism lengthened the time it took police to make an arrest. And that's not the first time I've said that here on this show. These accusations have triggered an investigation into previously unsolved murders of gay men in the 1970s. Now, in response, the Canadian federal government has also announced a $450,000 grant to help Pride Toronto develop strategies to help these communities in Canada live more securely. Their assertion is that McArthur's alleged crimes might have been solved more quickly had the victims not been homosexuals or racialized men. However, if we take a longer historical view of sexual violence perpetrated against marginalized victims, the McArthur investigation looks considerably more effective than those previous investigations. Meanwhile, according to the Daily Mail, James Leon Jackson, accused of raping and killing a 10-year-old girl in Florida in the 1980s, has protested his innocence in court, despite having a back tattoo that refers to the crime with the girl's name on it and a positive DNA sample. According to the Daily Mail, Tammy Welch was found raped and strangled while her family was moving out of their apartment 34 years ago. His DNA was found on her. Other inmates say he confessed. If convicted, he faces the death penalty. And according to the Detroit Snooze, naked outside MGM. Wait a second. They mean the MGM Grand Casino in Detroit. Shortly before the body of his girlfriend was discovered in a room at the MGM Grand Detroit with multiple stab wounds, Daniel Michalak was found nude outside the casino, saying he'd killed her with his bare hands. 2 security officers testified to this during a hearing on Tuesday. Michalak of St. Clair Shores was ordered to stand trial in connection with the May 29th death. Michalak was found acting abnormal when he was found in a grassy area near Bagley and 3rd. 2 of the officers testified during a preliminary examination. He said, "Call the police, I'm going to jail." He said that he killed his girlfriend with his bare hands in room 408. Meanwhile, from Arkansas Online, the state will seek the death penalty for a woman accused of murdering her 8-year-old daughter and 71-year-old mother and trying to burn down their house last week. Missy Ann Galley, 46, of Hot Springs, appeared via video Monday afternoon in district court and pleaded innocent to 2 counts of capital murder. According to the probable cause affidavit released Monday, Hot Springs police responded about 7:25 a.m. November 21st to a possible homicide. As they approached the glass front door, officers saw the body of a female child, later identified as Megan Gailey, on her back just inside the doorway, covered in blood from what appeared to be multiple stab or puncture wounds. They found a second victim, an adult female, later identified as Wanda Self, inside a rear bedroom. She was on her back, covered in blood, and appeared to have multiple stab or puncture wounds. As they searched the residence, they located Melissa Gailey in the backyard. She was under the house. The affidavit said the area where she was found had fresh char marks, as if it had been set on fire. So she tried to burn down her own house. She had blood all over her clothes. And according to thsi Live, in Staten Island, suicide or a ritual gone wrong? They say there's substantial evidence that the woman found dead and burned in a wooded area of Richmond Valley alone purchased the gasoline that was used to start the fire. According to a source with knowledge of the investigation, while authorities at this time have found no evidence to suggest the woman was murdered, detectives are continuing to probe all possibilities in the mysterious death. Oh boy. Where do we start? NJ.com, True New Jersey. A couple and 2 of their children were found dead Tuesday afternoon as an arson fire swept through their sprawling multi-million-dollar Colts Neck estate.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Vermicioni. I'm the Monmouth County prosecutor. I'm sad to report that we've had an incident here that remains under investigation. Around 12:38, the county dispatch received a call for a structure fire on Willow Grove Road in Colts Neck here in town. There was a response, a large fire and police response, and that continues as I stand here today. Unfortunately, we have confirmed that there are 4 fatalities that were found to be at the home. It's 2 adults and 2 children. We are still investigating the cause and manner, and unfortunately the fire, because it is still ongoing, is creating some challenges for our investigation. But a number of ladders, more than 20 fire departments continue to work to suppress and extinguish that fire. And we're going to continue our investigation once that scene is released. I don't have any information I can provide on identity of these individuals. The medical examiner has arrived.
Canero and his brother Paul Canero were partners in Square One, an Ashbury Park technology consulting firm and a pest control company that operated out of the same office. In a bizarre and perhaps related twist, a pre-dawn fire was reported Tuesday at the Ocean Township home of Paul and Susan Canero. The prosecutor would not say if that fire on Tilton Drive was linked to the Colts Neck blaze, but said detectives are investigating. What a difference a week makes.
But we called this press conference for the purpose of announcing that additional charges have been filed against Paul Canero this morning, and he's been served with those charges while he's detained at the Monmouth County Correctional Institute here in Freehold. We have charged defendant Canero with 4 counts of murder, 1 count of aggravated arson, 1 count of possession of a firearm for an unlawful purpose, and 1 count of possession of a knife for an unlawful purpose. These charges that were filed this morning are in addition to the charge that was filed last week out of Ocean Township for the alleged aggravated arson of the defendant's own home. And by filing these charges, the state alleges that the defendant murdered his brother Keith Canero and Keith's entire family, his 2 children, Sophia and Jesse, and his wife Jennifer.
Of course he did.
During the early morning hours of Tuesday, November 20th.
And from the NHK, 6 people were found dead on Monday at a home in Takachiho Town in Mizuyaki Prefecture, southwestern Japan. Police suspect murder as wounds were visible on some of the bodies. Most of the victims are believed to be family members and one was a small girl. Sources close to the investigation said a car believed to be the son's was found at a parking lot in town. A man's body was found under a bridge nearby. The identity of the body is still being confirmed and investigators are looking into whether the 2 incidents are connected. And an update in a missing persons case from Bakersfield, California.
Tonight in a bizarre missing persons case.
17's Olivia LaVoice joining us from the newsroom now with the latest. Olivia?
Well, Tammy, when 45-year-old Refugio Torres went missing in early July 2017, court documents suggested detectives feared the worst, that he'd been murdered. It turns out Torres was dead before he was even reported missing, but the coroner's office says he is not the victim of a homicide. This news was sparked by an inquiry from our sister station, Telemundo Valle Central, where reporters wanted to know whatever happened to the missing persons case that was initially deemed suspicious. Now, it all began July 1st, 2017. That's when family last heard from Torres. On July 5th, they reported him missing to the Bakersfield Police Department. The investigation heated up when family reportedly spotted Torres's car in front of a pot shop on Union Avenue with a convicted killer behind the wheel. That man was Andrew Franco. He was on parole after serving 8 years for manslaughter in the beating and stabbing death of a Bakersfield man in 2008. Franco fled before officers showed up, so the hunt was on. And a search warrant from July 2017 obtained by 17 News. Investigators wrote they felt Torres had been the victim of a violent crime and they needed to find Franco and question him. A couple weeks later, officers did find him, and this is where things get murky. Franco was arrested on a parole violation but was not charged for anything in connection to Torres's disappearance. Now, months later, a body that had been found on July 2nd, the day after Torres was last heard from, matched to Torres's DNA. The coroner's office determined Refugio Torres had died accidentally from thermal burns. Torres's body was discovered in a field off of Pacheco and Cottonwood Roads. It appears to firefighters he was set on fire while trying to strip copper wire. Now, the big unanswered question here is, how did Torres's car come to be in the possession of convicted killer Andrew Franco? We were unable to get an answer from investigators by news time. In studio, I'm Olivia LaVoice, 17 News.
And oh boy, Petaluma, California.
11, a grim discovery in Petaluma. A woman's body was found in a donation box. The disturbing find was made this morning in the parking lot outside the Steel Bear Deli on Old Redwood Highway. Now, this is video of the scene around 7 this morning. According to the Press Democrat, Petaluma police believe the woman was reaching down inside the box when she got crushed. She was found with her legs dangling out of the donation box. It's not known how long she was there. Authorities believe her death was an accident.
And a body found in North Carolina has been identified as a 13-year-old girl who was abducted in broad daylight while waiting for the school bus in front of her own house.
From where Hania Aguilar was last seen alive.
I wish we had a different outcome.
for Hanya's family, for the community that she lived in, and for the hundreds of law enforcement officers and searchers who put everything they had into finding her and bringing her back alive.
Authorities confirmed the body found Tuesday afternoon was that of 13-year-old Hanya Aguilar, who was taken from her home on the morning of November 5th.
The body was found in a body of water off the Wiregrass Road in Robeson County about 4:45 p.m. yesterday afternoon.
After 400 in-person interviews and more than 800 leads, investigators found Hanya's body.
We believe we found Hanya, but our work is far from over. We have to find out how she died, who did this to her, and we have to bring the person or persons responsible to justice.
And from WBRZ2, another weird one.
The son of infamous serial killer Derek Todd Lee now has a serious charge of his own. 19-year-old Dedrick Lee facing negligent homicide in the shooting of a 16-year-old in Jackson. News 2's Bess Cashley tells us the family of that teenager wants the charge up to murder.
The two teenagers lived close to each other, went to the same high school, and had some of the same friends. But Volante Brooks' family says Lee was no friend of his. 16-year-old Volante Brooks' grandmother recalls what she once heard Dedrick T. Lee say outside her home.
You don't know who my daddy was. And another young man replied, a rapist and a murderer.
Dedrick Lee killed Volante last week.
I love Valente. I miss Valente. I pass by his grave every day.
The daddy Dedrick was referring to was Derek Todd Lee. In the late 90s, Lee was sentenced to death in 2 murders, but believed to have committed several more. He died in prison before he could be executed. His son Dedrick was only 2 years old when he went away.
I just believe that that young man killed Valente for a reason.
In Dedrick's arrest warrant, officials say Dedrick first claimed Volante shot himself, then later changed his story, saying they had been playing with a gun and it went off on accident. He's charged with negligent homicide.
But I don't believe it was negligent homicide.
The warrant says Volante brought the gun to Lee's house so they could use it in a rap video. But his family says no way.
I've never seen Valente hold my pistol, and my pistol has been in there since '08.
Officials say they are still looking into the case.
It's important to understand that the investigation is still ongoing, and if anything comes up.
In South Africa, according to ENCA, in Johannesburg, police are hunting for clues about a suspected serial rapist and killer in Meyerton. There have been 5 victims between the ages of 16 and 27 since July last year, and their bodies were all found dumped in a field.
Here's a disturbing story. Is there a serial killer on the loose in Meyerton, that's south of Gauteng? We may not yet have the answer to that yet, but 5 women have all been murdered in the same way, at the same place, and police are now concerned. ENCA's Govan Whittles joins me now with more details on that particular story. So this is disturbing, Govan. The first time there was kind of speculation that I was aware of the possibility of a serial killer. A 27-year-old woman had been found dead around June, and then in October, a 16-year-old. What have you heard from what you've been doing, the work that you've been doing out there?
Yeah, so it's exactly because of the death of this 16-year-old Zweleka Ngwenyina, and she had died just last month. After her death, she had actually triggered the police batching together the cases of people that had been murdered in the area. And because of that, they've referred it to the provincial division of the police, and so the acting police commissioner in Gauteng is taking over the investigation. And because of that, they think that there may be a serial killer in the area. The police are careful not to confirm it, though, and that's because they don't have any evidence.
In fact,
Wow, guys, that was a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and hit the bell, and I think I got 8 of these left, so... Oh boy. Boy, that's been real fun, though. Thanks for watching.